She thought they loved her. All those years, she truly believed they were her family. After her parents passed away, she was just a little girl when her uncle and aunt took her in. She had no one else. She didn't remember much of her parents only. The smell of her mother's scarf and her father's quiet humming in the evening. Her new guardians told her they were doing her a favor. "You're lucky we kept you," her aunt would say when she cried at night. As the years passed, she cleaned the house, washed clothes, and helped at their small grocery stall. Every morning began before sunrise, and her day ended after everyone else was asleep. She was never sent to school. When she asked once, her uncle had snapped, "You get to eat here. That's your education." She believed them. She believed she wasn't worth more. One afternoon, her uncle called her over. "Get ready," he said. "We're going to the city." Her heart skipped. She had never seen the city before. Maybe it was her birthday. Maybe they were finally taking her somewhere good. Maybe they cared. She quietly put on her cleanest dress. It still had a hole in the pocket, but it was better than the others. She tied her hair and sat behind him on the motorbike. The road was long and dusty, but her eyes sparkled with hope. When they reached the city, it was louder and faster than anything she had ever imagined. Her uncle stopped outside an unfamiliar building and told her to get down. A woman opened the gate. She looked strict and had eyes that didn't smile. Her uncle handed her a small bag and said, "Stay here. Be good. We'll talk later." Before she could ask anything, he turned and walked away. She waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The woman came back and pulled her inside. "Start cleaning the floor," she said coldly. The girl looked around. There was no other child, no toys, no bed for her. Where's my uncle?" she asked. The woman turned. "He's gone. You live here now. And you work here." Her stomach dropped. She didn't understand at first. But as the days went on, the truth hit her harder than any slap. Her own family had sold her. Every morning, she had to sweep the house and wash the clothes of people she didn't know. She wasn't allowed outside. If she made a mistake, she was shouted at. If she asked questions, she was locked in the bathroom. At night, she slept on the kitchen floor, curled up beside the water cans. The sound of cars outside reminded her of home, but she had no way to go back. No one had even taught her how to use a phone. She tried to stay quiet. She thought if she behaved well, maybe they'd send her home. But that day never came. One evening, as she was scrubbing the floor near the front door, she heard the woman on a call. The woman didn't know the girl was listening. "She's too slow," the woman said. "If she doesn't get better, I'll send her somewhere else. I have a contact. They'll take her." The girl froze. Somewhere else? Her heart pounded. What did that mean? Where would she go next? Would it be worse than this? Could it be? She didn't sleep that night. She stared at the dark ceiling, her stomach empty, her heart broken in 1,000 quiet pieces. She missed the old house, even the shouting, even the grocery stall. At least she had known those streets. At least she had a name there. Here, she was no one. Just a pair of hands to clean and feet to run errands. She cried quietly, careful not to make a sound, but she didn't know that just a few doors away, someone had noticed. Someone had seen the small girl who never smiled. Someone had watched her carry heavy bags, clean stairs that weren't hers, and disappear into silence every night. That someone was about to change her story, but for now, she just closed her eyes and prayed not for rescue. Not even for freedom. She just prayed someone would one day say her name again like it meant something. The city never slept. Cars kept moving, horns kept shouting, and people walked past each other like shadows chasing time. In all that noise, no one heard the quiet pain of the girl in the small apartment. Every day, she woke up before the sun, washed her face with cold water, and began cleaning. She scrubbed the floors until her knees ached. She cut vegetables for people she never sat to eat with. The woman of the house never used her name. Just girl, sometimes idiot. There was no school, no friends. Not even a window with a view. Only a small balcony, where she sometimes stood for 5 seconds before being called back inside. But one day, during those 5 seconds, someone saw her. He wasn't anyone special to the world. Just a tea seller who lived across the hall. A man who made chai for construction workers and office staff. His hands were always stained with tea leaves, and his eyes looked tired from waking up early. But when he saw her, he paused. It wasn't just her small size or the old clothes. It was her silence. Her stillness. Children usually look around, even if shy. But she didn't. She just stared at the ground as if she had no right to look at the sky. The next day, he waited near the door, pretending to mop the floor. She stepped out again, placing the garbage near the stairs. She didn't see him at first, but then she glanced up and quickly looked away. He smiled gently. She didn't smile back, but he noticed the way her hands were shaking while holding the garbage bag. The following evening, he placed a small bun in a paper napkin and left it near the garbage bin. She saw it. She looked around. No one. She picked it up and slipped it into her pocket like a secret. She ate it that night slowly, like it was gold. Days passed. He kept leaving small things, a sweet, a biscuit. Once, a small juice box. She never said anything. But she began stepping out for a few seconds longer each time. One afternoon, she looked up and whispered, "Thank you." It was the first word she had said to someone outside that house in months. He didn't say much. Just nodded. But that small moment meant everything. She started noticing more. Like how he always kept his door open when she was outside. How he never asked questions, never came too close, never scared her. Just waited. Then came the night that changed everything. It was raining. The woman of the house was angry because the floor was wet. She yelled, threw a cloth at the girl, made her mop twice. Later, when the girl was done, she sat near the corner of the door, wet and shivering. The woman had gone out and left her locked outside. The cold wind bit into her arms. The man saw her. He didn't speak. He just walked over slowly, removed his shawl, and wrapped it around her shoulders. She didn't move. But her eyes filled with tears. He sat on the stairs, not too close. After a few minutes, he asked gently, "Do you want tea?" She nodded. He poured her a small cup in silence. She sipped it like it was the only warmth in the world. After a pause, he asked, "Where is your family?" She looked at the ground. "They said I'm a problem, so they gave me away," she whispered. The words were quiet, but they stabbed like a knife. He didn't speak for a while. But that night, when he closed his door, he didn't sleep. He sat with his phone, searching for numbers. Numbers that could help. Child help centers, NGOs, social workers. He made a few calls. Explained what he had seen. Shared the girl's details as best he could. He didn't know her name, age, or village. But he knew one thing: she didn't belong where she was. He didn't want to wait until it was too late. He had seen enough in life to know what silence can hide. But the next morning, something was different. The woman in the house was on the phone, angry, whispering loudly. She's talking to people. She sighed. "I think someone's watching. I'm sending her away tomorrow. Somewhere far. Don't ask where." The girl heard it too. Her hands trembled as she folded clothes. She didn't know where they were planning to take her. But deep inside, she knew. If she left that house now, no one would ever find her again. And across the hall, the man was already preparing for a rescue. He just didn't know how little time he had left. She didn't sleep that night. She lay still on the kitchen tiles, pretending to sleep as the woman's footsteps echoed back and forth. Her mind kept repeating the same sentence she had overheard. "I'm sending her away tomorrow." She didn't Nowhere away meant. But her heart knew it was a place where she might never be seen again. She wished someone would ask her if she was okay. But no one did. Across the hall, the tea seller was pacing too. He had spoken with a lady from a child welfare group. They promised they would act, but paperwork took time, rules, permissions, delays. He begged them to hurry. "She's just a child," he had said over the phone. "She's being treated like an object." "We understand, sir," the woman said, "but we need evidence, photos, timings, if possible, a short video." He didn't sleep that night either. He just waited. The next morning, everything moved too fast. The girl was pulled from sleep before sunrise. The woman had packed a small cloth bag and tossed her a pair of slippers. "No questions," the woman hissed. "You'll do what I say." The girl's hands trembled as she tried to put on the slippers. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Her eyes drifted to the balcony one last time, hoping to see him, but the curtain across the hall was still drawn. Maybe he wasn't awake yet. She didn't know he had been up all night. Watching from behind the curtain, phone ready. At exactly 6:08 a.m., a van pulled up. A man stepped out, spoke quickly to the woman, then opened the back door. The girl looked at the van. Its windows were dark. She had never seen that man before. Suddenly, the woman grabbed her wrist. "Move!" But before she could be shoved forward, the stairwell echoed with a sharp knock on the gate. It wasn't the tea seller. It was 3 people, 2 women, and a man in plain clothes. One of them held a folder. The other carried a camera. "We're from Child Safety Services," the woman said firmly. "Is the girl here?" The older woman tried to act confused. "What girl?" Then, the tea seller stepped forward. He was holding his phone with a video playing, a clip from the previous night, showing the girl sleeping outside the door, shivering. "I recorded this," he said softly. "And I'm ready to tell the truth." The girl stood frozen. Her heart didn't know whether to hope or fear. The child protection team walked in. One of them gently crouched in front of her. "Sweetheart, do you know these people?" she asked. The girl looked at the woman beside her. Then she looked at the tea seller. He nodded slightly, reassuring her. "I don't want to go in the van," the girl whispered. That was all it took. Within minutes, the officers took her aside, wrapped her in a clean shawl, and placed her in their vehicle. Not the dark van, but a white one with soft seats and a pink teddy bear keychain swinging from the mirror. She was safe. For the first time in a long time, she was safe. The woman who tried to send her away shouted and argued. But it didn't matter anymore. The truth was out. Papers were filed. An investigation had started. The van driver quietly disappeared. The case would take time, but the girl wouldn't wait in danger any longer. At the child shelter, the room smelled of detergent and fresh bed sheets. A volunteer handed her a glass of warm milk. She hesitated. "You're not in trouble here," the woman said gently. "No chores. No yelling, just rest." That night, the girl sat on the edge of the soft bed, confused by the silence. No shouting. No slamming doors. And then there was a knock. She jumped, old fear returning. But it was just the tea seller, standing at the open doorway with a plastic bag in hand. "I brought you your favorite," he said. "Bun and mango juice." She didn't know what to say. "I'm not staying," he added quickly. "Just wanted to check if you're okay." She stared at him. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Finally she whispered, "Why did you help me?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because someone should have," he said. "You didn't deserve to be treated like that. No child does." She took the juice. Her hands were still shaky, but her heart felt lighter than ever. He stepped back. "Will you come again?" she asked. He smiled. "Every Sunday." "I promise." She nodded. That night, she fell asleep with the juice box beside her and the shawl still wrapped around her like armor. And for the first time since she could Remember, she dreamed something good. The shelter was quiet, but her heart wasn't. Even though she had escaped that terrible home, the fear inside her hadn't disappeared yet. She still jumped at loud noises. She still looked over her shoulder whenever someone walked by. And she still thought maybe someone would come and take her back. But the shelter workers were different. They didn't shout. They didn't rush her. They gave her space, and slowly the girl started to breathe again. Her first night in the Vangwama soft bed felt like sleeping on clouds. There were no chains, no locked doors, no one calling her useless. Just a blanket that smelled like sunshine and a pillow she didn't have to share with a mop dot in the morning. A lady came to her room with a notebook. "We're not asking for your full story," she said kindly. "Just your name, your age. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing." The girl hesitated. She hadn't said her name out loud in so long. It felt strange, like it didn't belong to her anymore. But finally, she whispered it. The lady smiled. "That's a beautiful name." She had forgotten what it felt like to hear her name without anger in it. At breakfast, she met another girl who had also come from a hard place. They didn't talk much, just exchanged a glance. A quiet kind of friendship formed, one without words, just safety. Every Sunday, just like he promised, the tea seller came. He never stayed too long. Never asked for hugs or stories. He would sit under the tree near the building and wave when she came out. Sometimes he brought her storybooks. Sometimes he just brought silence, the peaceful kind. One Sunday, he brought a small box wrapped in newspaper. "I thought maybe you'd want to draw," he said. Inside were colored pencils and a sketchbook. She touched the pencils like they were made of glass. She had never owned something like this. Not even a broken one. That night, she drew a house with a big window and stars above it. And inside that house was a little girl, not crying, not cleaning, just smiling. A few days later, the shelter staff took her for a health checkup. She was underweight. Her legs had scars. But the doctor said, "Nothing that can't heal." It was the first time someone talked about her like she was fixable, not broken. Weeks passed, and her eyes stopped darting around so much. She started speaking more. She helped set tables, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She even began teaching one of the smaller kids how to write letters. Then came the day they asked her the big question, "Would you like to start school?" She froze. Was it a trick? The woman smiled. "You're free now. You can learn anything you want." She nodded slowly, unsure if she would fit in, but something in her chest whispered, "Say yes." The tea seller heard about it during his Sunday visit. He didn't say much, but he had tears in his eyes. "You'll do well," he said. "You've already survived the hardest exam of all." He began visiting less as she got busier, but he never disappeared. On her birthday, the first one anyone had celebrated for her, he brought a small cake. She didn't even know it was her birthday until the shelter staff looked through old records. There were no balloons, no music, just a candle and 3 people singing softly. It was perfect. After blowing the candle, she turned to him and asked, "Why do you still come?" "I'm okay now." He looked at her for a long time and said, "Because when I was your age, no one came for me. I know how it feels." That moment stayed with her. It was like a secret thread connected them. 2 people who had once been forgotten by the world, but somehow found each other. He didn't have a lot of money. He didn't have a big house. But he gave her something no one else had ever offered: belief. He believed she could heal, that she could grow, that she could become more than her past. And because of that, she started to believe it too. Time didn't erase the past, but it helped her write a new one. She wasn't the same scared girl who had once stood barefoot on a stranger's balcony. Now she walked into her classroom with a backpack on her shoulders and a quiet strength in her eyes. At school, everything was new: chalk dust, ringing bells, the laughter of classmates. She didn't talk much at first, but her notebooks were always neat. She listened more than she spoke, but when she answered, Her words were careful and honest. She knew what silence had taught her. Back at the shelter, she still helped the younger kids with reading. She didn't do it for praise. She just didn't want anyone else to feel invisible like she once did. One afternoon, the tea seller came by and handed her a plain envelope. Inside was a letter. Her name was now officially registered, along with guardianship paperwork that allowed her to stay at the shelter long term. The past was being cleaned up bit by bit. Her old guardians were under investigation. The woman who had nearly sent her away was facing court charges. She wasn't sure how to feel, but when she looked up at the man who had started it all, she simply said, "Thank you." He smiled. "Someday you'll do this for someone else." At first, she didn't believe it. She still felt too small, too quiet, but years passed. She finished school, then college. She chose to study social work, not because it was easy, but because she had lived it. She knew what broken looked like, what fear sounded like, and she knew that the smallest act, one smile, one bun, one kind word, could save a life. Her story became part of training modules for new rescue workers. Shelter staff would often mention her when comforting frightened children. She was once in your place, they'd say. Now she's helping others find their light. One rainy evening, she returned to the old neighborhood. Not to visit pain, but to see someone important. The tea stall was still there. The man had more gray in his beard now, and his hands shook a little when pouring chai. But his smile hadn't aged a day. He looked up and paused. He recognized her. Immediately. "You came back," he said, his voice soft. She laughed. "I told you I would." They sat on the same bench near the steps, just like they used to. She told him about college, about the little girls she was helping now, about the drawing she still did when things felt heavy. "I kept the first bun wrapper," she said, reaching into her bag and pulling out a small paper scrap, old, yellowed, but still whole. He laughed quietly. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything," she said, "because you gave when no one else even looked." Before she left, she handed him an envelope. He opened it. Inside was a certificate, her graduation photo, and under it, a thank you note. "Without you," she had written, "I would have been a missing name in a forgotten file. Now I'm someone others can count on." He blinked back tears. "You saved yourself," he whispered. She shook her head gently. "No, you opened the door. I just walked through." Later that week, she returned to the shelter not as a resident, but as a full-time caseworker. The children watched her with wide eyes. Some smiled. Some looked away, still scared. She sat down beside a new girl who hadn't spoken since arriving. She didn't ask questions. She just opened her bag, took out a small juice box and a sketchbook, and placed them on the floor between them. The girl looked at them, then at her dot, and for the first time since arriving, she whispered, "Thank you." The young woman smiled and said softly, "You're not alone. Not anymore." She was once sold like she didn't matter. She was treated like a burden, forgotten, but today, she was the reason others were being found, rescued, healed. She didn't carry bitterness, she carried hope, and because of one stranger who refused to look away, she became the reason others survived. She wasn't just saved. She became someone who saves.